Race 7 of the BMW IBSF 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. We're 1,775 meters up in the Swiss Alps. We're in the Engadin Valley on the road between St Moritz and Celerina. For over 100 years, they have been racing sleds down this hill. The final remaining natural track on the planet is the venue for the European Championships as we get ready for the second and deciding heat of this 4-man bobsleigh competition. Weather affected, and we'll have a slight delay for the start of the second heat as the track continues to be snowing and they will try and clean it. Martin Haven, John Morgan watching what was a fascinating first heat, John, with some standout performances.
Yeah, Mel Bardas hasn't competed a lot, so he's way back in the standings, and he posted the best start time coming out of the 18th position and snuck in between the three Germans who are on top of the leaderboard. He's in third, and he's not far back from the silver, chasing this team down. Nico Walther, he's won a couple times on the World Cup circuit and had a bronze medal in the two-man yesterday, and he came out of the blocks in a decent start, decent finish, and he's got a lot of work to do to chase down gold and keep Mel Bardas off his tail, because Max Arndt, the guy who won this event in 2000 World Championships here in St Moritz, well, he posted the second best start time, and when you give a guy with this much talent, that type of a start, he's got the talent to bring it to the bottom with the best time like he did in the first heat. And he was only 1200ths out of the track record.
So we have Max Arndt leading the field. Nico Walther, twice a winner this season, in second place. Last year's race winner, Oscar's Mel Bardas, in bronze, despite a back injury and an injury for his brakeman as well. Francesco Friedrich in fourth, third fastest start, even though he was jogging off. But some great results. Benny Meyer, Lucas Kolb for Austria in the top 7. Jan Verber in 8th position. And outside the top 20, that's rounded out by John Jackson, some big names. Chris Spring of Canada didn't make it through into the second heat, and he wasn't alone either, because Nick Cunningham from the USA, guys that you regularly expect to see right up towards the sharp end of a field, all struggled. The early going was very snowy. It got a little less snowy later in the runs, and that allowed some of the unexpected results we've seen. Like Costeg of France was another one who had a really good run going.
Well, the track, you know, built over 100 years ago, and the names that they've got in some of these curves are from 80 to 100 years ago. I mean, it's the longest track. It's the only natural track on the planet, and it's quiet, it's smooth. You drive down through the forest from St Moritz to Celerina. These British guys have the start record from a couple weeks ago, and every year the track records change because they carve this track differently every year, pretty much in the same shape, but not exact. First part of the track, though, pretty quiet down through these chinks. Now we go to the wall curve. It's a little sweeping left. You got to be less pressure as much as you can, and then through the snake. Very meticulous in a two-man race, four-man, and they seem to be handling it much better. Sunny, now Nash and Dixon, named after the two British guys who won the gold medal in '64 in Innsbruck. Here, Horseshoe, the most famous curve in the world, and you exit with slingshot effect down into the bottom part of the track. Telephone, Devil's Dyke, Lee Bridge, no name. Some of these curves been around 80 years, these names of these curves, and the speeds, well, we saw 90 miles an hour in the first heat. We could see that, and I predict with the way the snow's not falling as hard, we could see a track record in the second heat. The Martineau curve, named after right here the guy who founded the St Moritz Bobsled Club in 1927. And I like to say it's such a privilege to do commentary on this historic track. What Wrigley Field is to baseball, what Monte Carlo is to auto racing, this place is to the sport of bobsled.
It really is. It's got all the history, it's got all the excitement, all the glamorous location, and the only natural track still remaining. All bobsled tracks were once built this way before modern concrete channels with artificial refrigeration came into play. And of course, one of the downsides of the natural track is that it doesn't have a built-in roof. The forest doesn't keep all the snow off. And the other downside is if it gets too warm, like it did in Innsbruck in 1964, the track melts away overnight.
Well, the conditions barely below freezing, and we've seen horrific conditions here all week long for a natural ice track. It was raining on Monday. No training for the athletes Tuesday or Wednesday. They only got 4 total trips, 2 in the two-man, 2 in the four-man. And You know, so there was some teams here at a serious deficiency. The Austrian sleds you see in the top 7, well, they were both here for the Europa Cup the week before. They've got a tremendous advantage and is showing it, but give them credit. They took advantage of it and posted the best times of their careers and the best placing in the heats. And you'll see the track workers, they're busy.
No snow coming down, or almost no snow coming down, and for the first 5 or 7, 8 sleds maybe, it was really snowing quite hard at the beginning of the first heat, so they were at a definite disadvantage. However, most of our expected top runners are at the front of the field. Our second heat, we go from 20 to 1 out of a starting field of 28. We have already cut 8 from the pack. John Jackson will be first to go, followed by Korea's Yoon Jong-won and Uge Salems of Latvia. And as we get down into the serious business, Benny Meyer of Austria 5th, Francesco Friedrich, Austria's Melbardas, Nico Walther, all chasing Maximilian Arndt, who will hope that the snow holds off for the next hour or so. Well, there's not an awful lot drifting down out of the clouds, but the weather forecasters suggest that from lunchtime, and they're vague about when lunchtime might be, then the snow will arrive again with a vengeance. So we might get this underway in clearer conditions than it finishes in. First of our 20 sleds on the ice in the second deciding heat, race 7 of the BMW IBSF Bobsled World Cup and the European Championships. The only British team to make it in. John Jackson, Brad Hall, Bruce Tasker and Ben Simons. 4 bobsled drivers on this British sled.
Yeah, Brad Hall and Bruce Tasker, they both competed yesterday in the 2-man race. Had awesome start times, but they're still learning. 5:14 start. The British in the first heat at a 5:21. So big improvement, and with the times that John Jackson posted in training, in those 2 heats of training, he was fast and everybody was looking at him. In the first heat today, though, he didn't have any speed on the bottom part of the track.
A full second off the pace. They went off 16th, so the snow was definitely not at its worst at that stage.
And Melbardas came right after him and had the best start and the 3rd best at the bottom, so you couldn't say it was weather-related. Ooh, he hit there, I think. He exited a horseshoe.
Melbardas was 21st off today, so actually the weather was slightly better for him than it was for the guys around him in the top 4.
So here's our rabbit, and it's not snowing like it was in the first run.
No, there's barely anything.
So 106.63 in the first heat. And boy, he's clean there compared to the first heat. 142.2. It's only 88 miles an hour.
He might have the best ice of the day so far for John Jackson.
106.57.
It's only 600 better. Well, hang on a minute, they were 700s faster at the start.
Yeah, so that was not, I mean, that tells me the track, you know, we were only 1300s off the track record in the first run, but usually this track speeds up on a normal day, but this is not a normal day. Well, that tells me the track doesn't have speed.
Well, we'll wait and see for another couple to come. John Jackson looked like a fairly clean run here out of Horseshoe, though clatters into the wall.
Not good, hitting that take on the telephone. He knows it.
Frustrated with his 2 runs here. Only had 2 training trips as well, because he wasn't in the 2-man race. There was 1 day of 2-man, 1 day of 4-man training. Yoon Jong-won, he did both days of training because he was in the 2-man race yesterday. 19th spot, 500s in front of Great Britain.
Well, this is the world. We can't get in. Watch out, we're on the first curve here. Not bad recovery. He couldn't get in. And that's pretty tricky around that first curve. That's the first pivotal part of the track, getting around that first curve cleanly with these 4 guys all trying to get in this little bathtub.
Starts 1300ths of a second slower than Great Britain, so he's behind already.
And Juan is the World Cup leader in 2-man. I told the story in the first heat. This was a developing nation in the sport of bobsledding. They're no longer developing. They lead the World Cup in 2-man, Bob. Their first ever gold medal last week, 2 weeks ago in Whistler. And then in skeleton the other day, they won their first ever gold medal in skeleton. So this emerging nation is now one of the top nations in the sport.
Gone from 800s behind at the start to 3500s back now. 3/10, so he's closing the margin a little. Better speed than the British sled.
They haven't figured out the 4-man yet. they will. The next 2 years, they'll be just as competitive at 4-man as they are in 2-man.
Too far behind, he's not going to make it in front. Jackson will stay in the leader's box, at least for another one. 106.88, that's very slow. Now, the other factor, John, normally the overnight low here hovers around -18, -20, and during the day warms up to -10. Overnight low, because it snowed last night, was barely below freezing. The track is a lot softer and a lot less fast as the day warms up than it would normally be.
Yeah, nice to see the no snowfall. Look at the way Juan has a problem getting in.
Now that's the second time this year he's had that. Caught his foot trying to climb
Listen,
in.
this could have been a lot worse than it was, because he's got to get in, get those D-rings in his hands, because he goes around the first curve. This was a very good recovery. Near disaster. I mean, look at there's the World Cup leader in 2-man right there. First Asian ever to do that in the sport of bobsled.
And he is likely going to win the Crystal Globe as well. What a testament to Malcolm Lloyd, their coach, that would be. Next up, Ugo Salims, a 30-year-old from Latvia. Third fastest starting team in the first heat with a 5.18. Look at them get in, 5.12.
Yeah, but they might as well have had a 5.20, because that little tap of the exit of one, huge amount of time.
We're talking to Wolfgang Stanford yesterday about the track, and he was saying, if you make a hit before you get to Snake, then it's almost like crashing lower down. You lose so much time.
10/100ths lead should be more than that with the unbelievable start. And we were sort of bad-mouthed the Latvian sleds, which are Eurotechs on the bottom part of the track. Oh, he hits there before telephone. That's costly. But Badrutt proved us wrong. He had the best start in the competition and maintained speed on the bottom part of the track, and that's why he's in third place, challenging for the top position.
700s up in the first heat, gaps out now to 2/10 over John Jackson of Great Britain.
Well, when you have a start time that's 15 or only a couple hundredths better, but in the first run, he beat Jackson considerably at the start. 106.32, faster by 2400ths.
Well, Jacko improved by 600ths, and the Latvians improved by nearly 2/10 more than that.
Probably more Latvian spectators here than Swiss. Of course, the Latvians travel very well with their bobsled skeleton teams. But he's the leader. And, you know, he didn't have this perfect line on the exit of Horseshoe. If they show it, he goes over there and taps the left-hand wall. It'll be right on our screen to watch him. Watch the right side of our screen. That tap doesn't allow you to have that slingshot effect, but he is the leader now with 17 sleds to go.
Only one Canadian sled makes the second heat here in St Moritz. Justin Cripps, 17th after the first heat, 9/10 out of the lead. Teammate Chris Spring didn't make the top 20.
5:21 start, should be better here in the second run. Boy, they got down much better. 5:14, the start track up there definitely improved. 50.4 speed, that's a good number to keep your track of.
Less snow in the grooves means you're not snow plowing as you push the sled, and that all makes a difference.
And this little trip down from St Moritz to Celerina, basically in the same direction as they were 100 years ago. Then it changes every year, though, a little bit here and there.
Well, like anything that's handmade, it is fractionally different, but follows the same path down through the trees.
Right to the 100th now.
105.7, very good speed, though, from Justin Cripps. Let's see if he can pull away. He's only tied for the lead. He was 200ths in front of Salims in Heat 1.
Yeah, he picked up a good slingshot on a Horseshoe. He went from dead even to 400ths ahead. Let's see if he can hold it down here. 143 speed, he's got that.
It's going to be very close. Salims was 143.1, and at the line, 200ths, just by 200ths of a second. That's his first heat advantage, because his second run was exactly the same time as Ugo Salims. And 2 miles of ice there, 200ths of a second apart.
Okay, a little great. They're happy with the start, not the downtime. And Cripps has lost weekend here. He hadn't had a very good weekend. 2-man didn't make the cut. Watch him get down. cat-like movements to get in the sled, get down quickly, get around that first curve. You don't want to be standing up. Look at the cohesion there, beautiful. And here in the, this is where he won his position. Perfect exit of horseshoe, snuck over there and took advantage of the speed in the bottom part of the track that exit of horseshoe offers.
Justin Cripps leads. Next up, Stephen Holcomb, multiple world and Olympic champion in 4-man bobsled. 15th fastest at the start, 16th at the bottom.
Holcomb had a terrible drive down the track.
Yeah.
Needs to improve, needs to get a 20 start to have a chance here. There's the 20. Speed, 50 flat, same start speed that they had in the first heat. But Holcomb, on the top part of the track, especially coming up here in Snake and the exit of Sunny, he was in skids, which is so unlike this Olympic champion, especially after what he did yesterday when he had second place with an 18th best start time.
Really good run in the 2-man yesterday. 700s behind Justin Cripps.
Oh, no mistake there. He had a skid here in the first heat. Let's see if he gets through a horseshoe clean. First heat, he was suspect. He's losing time. Gonna need to find that magic speed line that he had yesterday when he blew everybody away in the bottom part of the track to capture his second podium of the season. Still at 8. Gonna need 144-kilometer speed to have a chance.
Cripps 143.0. Holcomb 143.2. It's not gonna be enough. It's gonna be very close, but he may still be behind at the line. 600ths of a second back.
So the Canadians beat Holcomb at the start by 7. They beat him by 6 at the bottom. Holcomb might have outdrove him, but that shows you what the start. Remember that question we had in the first heat about how close things are here in the track? Look at the last 3 sleds down here, how close they are.
Well, we've got 3 sleds separated by 200s coming up in the teens as well, so this is very close. In fact, we had the last 3 sleds were only separated by 400s in the first heat.
Perfect aerodynamic profile by the team.
Watch the runners steering left, and then
quick adjustment
releases the steer, allows it to come back to center.
Let's see what happens here in the finish. Boy, he's right down the middle.
Yeah, just bumps up on the take onto Portago, the final corner. Justin Cripps remains in the leader's box.
Still a great weekend for Holcomb.
Justin Cripps, Uge Salem, Steve Holcomb, the top 3, 15 to go. Billy Meyer Hans of Switzerland, 15th in the first of 2 heats in his home track in St Moritz. No home advantage though for the Swiss. They have not raced on this track any more than anybody else.
18. What a promoter this guy is.
And on a run of good results as well. Had a 16th place finish in Park City, the second of the 4-man races there.
And Billy happens to be 48 years young, the oldest competitor.
Oh, they get in, but they get in clean. It wasn't the fastest start, a fraction quicker than the 5:29 in their first heat.
Yeah, but he shows his abilities on the bottom part of the track. He gives up a lot of time at the start. Boy, a lot of shoulders back there. A lot of, aerodynamic deficiency when you can see anybody behind. As you continue to watch, as we get to the top teams, you won't even see that second, third, or fourth guy. Here, the number 2 guy's helmet is way up. See him, you can see him bouncing around. That's an aerodynamic no, that skid right there didn't help.
Looks like they all didn't get quite in. You have to have your legs around the backside of the guy in front to wriggle into the sleds. Imagine trying to do that at speed. 2700s back. 5th place at the moment.
He'll bring it back, probably get it into the teens. He's good in the bottom part of the track. Pretty savvy guy behind this as a driver, but give up that much time at the start.
Same speed as Holcomb, 143.2. Will he be in 3rd or 4th? 4th place ahead of John Jackson. So Cripps and the team stay in the lead. 106.57, 106.49 rather in the first heat. So Billy losing 600ths of a second, 800ths of a second there. He'll be disappointed with that.
Hey, he's in the field. He made the field for the second.
Well, do you know what? And there's not many people here, not all the people can say that as well.
But this didn't help. Watch the back end of the sled. Boy, tough to get these sleds in a skid, but when you get them into a skid, they have a mind of their own. Pretty tough to bring them back, and here a little tap down here below. This is down in the Devil's Dyke, nameless section of the track, but now they're gonna weigh them, looks like.
Yeah, they're weighing all the sleds at the bottom.
This is a mystery, this team.
Well, we have these two Swiss sleds just 0.05 of a second apart and nowhere near the top 3, never mind the top 10.
We didn't have a very good start in the first run. They had problems getting around the first curve.
Rico Peter 5.18 compared to 5.26 in the first heat. That's much better.
Look at the profile, the aerodynamic profile. We're seeing the guy back there at 3, but the rest of it's pretty good. You aren't seeing any helmets above Rico Peter like we saw on the last sled. And aerodynamics on this track where the sleds can reach 90 miles an hour on the bottom has a lot to do with your finish.
10th of a second quicker than Justin Cripps in the first heat. He's now only 0.06 up.
Rico Peter, disastrous placing yesterday for a guy who won a couple weeks ago in the two-man. He finishes 18th at his home track.
And that's knocking on. His speed is not as good as Cripps. He's a kilometer, nearly 2 kilometers down.
1200s. Could be single digits at the next clock, and then it's going to be a challenge.
Oh, big skid.
Oh, he's got enough, though. He's got enough.
Got to make sure he gets Martino and Portago clean and doesn't hit the wall on the exits. 1900s.
106.23. That's 21 hundredths better in the second run.
But is he even going to get a top 10 out of this?
I don't think so. But this shows me that if he's 2/10 better in the second run, our track record is available to the top couple sleds.
Yeah, long as they don't hit the snow later on in the run.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Start, get in, get down. You want to be settled before you get around that first curve. Push bars, cohesion, teamwork. Then down here, the team can only sit and hope the driver doesn't tap any walls. And there's a couple taps here that are worthy of, at that speed part of the track, that tap's worth 500s.
Third in our World Cup standings, never out of the top 5 this year. On home ice in Switzerland, he might not even make a top 10 because there's a lot of quick sleds in front, like this one. Loic Kostega, France, trained well. The only day of training, he was quick and he produced the goods in the race.
Yeah, big surprise, 525, should be 521 or so here.
Oh, they had to get up and get out again. Oh, and a big wriggle there.
Yeah, great, everybody's faster up there. Pretty good entry, even though they had some guys sitting up around that first curve. Well, Kosteg was, you know, from La Plante. He's coached by Bruno Mangeon. You know this is Bruno Mangeon equipment. And it's a finely tuned machine. And Bruno Mangeon won a world championship in '99 and an Olympic bronze medal in '98. Everybody knows if Kosteg can drive, he'll do well. And he did well in the bottom part of the track in the first run.
Good speed out of this sled lower down. He's only 100th behind our current leader, Rico Peter, the man who is 3rd in World Cup points.
6 down, he still has a chance. Not tapping there, though.
Loic Kosteg, 24th in World Cup points. This is not an even
that was
match.
rough. Transition, he's still late there.
700s back, he's still in second ahead of Justin Cripps of Canada.
Boy, he just wasn't steering down there, which is what Bruno Mangeon used to do. 14, yeah, he's going to drop at least 1 spot.
So he will drop 1, and Rico Peter stays in the lead.
He drops 2.
Last corners didn't win. No, drops, 4
There's Bruno
places.
Mangeon, Max Robert Mangeon. You know, really good driver, really good mechanic. And Kosteg has got his protege. Kosteg has a chance.
10th of a second slower, and he shakes his head. It was all in the final couple of corners. So let's see when we see down at the bottom, where was the skid that cost him all that time, because he went from 2nd to 4th.
That's the back end here.
Yeah, that definitely didn't help.
Sunny curve. And then, or this is down the bottom part of the track, excuse me. Back end of the sled skid, and then he just for 2 or 3 corners, he couldn't catch up to it.
Speed just went away at the bottom. Still, good result for him. He lies in 4th place with 12 to go, so he'll be no worse than 16th. That's his best result of the season. Alexei Stulnev, 12th after the first heat, 100th out of 11th, 200ths out of 10th, 600ths out of 9th, 800ths out of 8th. That's how tight this is right now.
Well, the first of 2 consecutive Russian sleds we're going to see here. 3 out of 4 sleds. Ooh,
Goodbye. Okay, Pierre Luder's look away now. It's all too late, I'm afraid. That puts him in the red.
Look at the shoulders, too. We're seeing it. They're pretty low there, but the number 2 guy, he's pretty wide. 2 or 3 there, and that's like a parachute. Surprised. But the way the Russians shuffle up their teams, it's tough to get these guys to fit in the sleds.
1800ths of a second back. He could drop 4, 5, 6 places.
Well,
and that just underlines what we've always been told by the drivers. You make those hits in the first 2 straightaways, you may as well get out and go shopping.
And there's on this track,
2400s back already.
He stopped the bleeding, but he can still get to Holcomb. Ooh, that's not good. That's not good. If he's going to hit here in the straightaway, he's going to have a problem.
Remember the Russian women's sleds yesterday, the way the back was sliding all over the track? He's got the same issue. 6th on the split times. Drops behind Holcomb. Oh. So the Swiss now start to wrap up a little bit. Stulnev, that was a horror story.
Yeah, and the thing about when you tap like that at curve 1, well, we can look around and say his team.
1900s,
look, he's still looking around.
His first run.
Still looking around like, what happened?
Wow.
Look at the way the number 2, number 3 guy they are. The 4th guy is buried in there perfectly. That's where all the dirty air comes in the back of the sled, out behind the brakeman.
Great view of where the guy at 3, his knees were up rather than straight in front of him, and that's why he couldn't get bent all the way down. Great view down into the sled there, shows how comfortable it isn't.
Oh, it's beautiful in there.
Well, do you know what? It's a beautiful view, but not for brakemen. Next up, Nikita Zakharov, 100th faster than teammate Alexei Stulnev in the first heat. Zakharov didn't do the 2-man race yesterday. That was Maxim Andrianov. So he's had 2 trips down this track.
Perfect 21 start.
Yeah, that gives him a shot, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. 400's better, and he was, his start speed only 49.2. Start speed should be 50 plus.
He was only 800ths in front of Rico Peter, our current leader from the first heat.
Check the aerodynamic profile, looks good here. Number 2 guy's helmet is tucked in behind the driver, but he's a little loose.
Behind already. Rico Peter 86.6, 85.9 for Zakharov. Hasn't got the speed. 100 for Zakharov, 103.1 for Rico Peter.
1200's back. He could get down some of it back, but now it's 16. Now he's falling away.
4th place on the split times.
If he hits here, he could fall 5 places.
Yep.
He doesn't hit there, though. 143. Yeah, he's got that. Should drop 4th to 4th place.
Behind Uga Salims. He's just in front of Uga Salims.
By 100.
By 100th of a second, but Rico Peter continues to climb the order. Yikes. But 2/10 off the leader. It's a bit of a shocker again for Zakharov.
These are Walner sleds. Walner will no longer be the exclusive supplier of Russian equipment. On March 1st, he's told us that his contract ends and he will be selling sleds to the world.
Running the flag bucket back up the flagpole. Well, the Russians get in neatly here.
Yeah, it's a really clean load. Look at the profile in the back now.
Again, look in the sled. Let's see the knees there. You can see that the guy at 3, he's got his legs a little further down. The guy at 2, though, can't get so much round the driver's seat. Rico Peter leads for Switzerland with 10 sleds still to go here in St Moritz. Simona Bertaccio of Italy, fast off from the blocks. The moment the lights change, away go the Italians in case some snow's on the way. Martin Ava, John Morgan watching the European Championships, the 4-man bobsled here in St Moritz.
Well, he gives up the time at the start as the worst start of the 11 sleds, but this very talented Italian driver finds a way to drive a perfect line down the track and put himself in the top 10, which is where he's been most of the season. 1200's back. That's related to the start. Aerodynamic profile looks good. Exit. Perfect.
Dropping more time.
Yeah, but he stopped the bleeding, 12 to 14.
105.8 is quicker than Rico Peter at that stage by 1.8 kilometers an hour.
So he stopped the bleeding, but I think he's going to run out of track. He'll move. Could drop a couple places.
He's at 4th on the splits, but he was down in 6th position.
143.5 is good speed. Here he comes. He might get it down to single digits.
And at the line, a 10th behind. He is in 2nd place, so Rico Peter moves up into 10th spot from what was 14th in the first heat.
Former from Italy, 1 minute 6 seconds,
106.43, he came down 106.34 in the first heat. They had a 200s faster start. Wonder what this tells us about the nature of the track.
Well, we like looking at the arrow board. The 3 guys behind him are tucked in there very neatly. Look at the cross arms there of the number 2 guy. Yeah. He wasn't holding on left to right. He's got a cross arm holding himself in. That was strange.
No knees up there either.
Those pictures are so beautiful. We can make critique on that we never see like that.
Rico Peter is our race leader. 9 to go. The last of our Russian sleds, Alexander Kashanov. So let's see what he can produce. 8th fastest at the start, 9th at the bottom of the track, but only 200s out of 8th place. We've had some disappointing surprises for some of our regular stars. We've had some big positive surprises, and we've still got a few to come yet in our field.
The guy in the back, Ilya Melek, he's got a different uniform on, and he came for the headshot here today, and he's new. And Russians are trying to find a way to give Kashanov, who's won a World Cup 4-man this year, with a deficient start time, they're trying to find a way to give him a better start. And if he gets a better start, he could challenge.
He's the only non-German to have won a 4-man race this year. The others are being split. 2 for Francesco Friedrich, 2 for Nico Walther, 1 for Max Arndt.
Only 100th up.
Yeah.
So,
and from here, 6,800s back in the first heat. He's not going to be within the same postcode as the males.
No. Ooh, high line.
But gets away with it.
Down 1.
Speed at the bottom for Rico Peter, 103.1. Kashanov hovering around the leader.
Losing.
But he had nearly a 10th in hand over Rico from the first heat, and he's still in the red, and the gap is growing. 400s back.
Needs 144, doesn't have it. 143 low.
There'll still be single digits, but how
Should
close
fall
will he
1
be?
spot.
Oh, 700s back. Well, now, the last 3 or 4 sleds, we have not seen any improvement in time. Actually, Rico Peter, the last man to go quicker than his first heat.
So I think the track has ceased the faster time in the second run than the first, like we saw in the 2-man competition.
Well, and the other thing, of course, is that Rico Peter's first run was a shocker. Yeah. So if he didn't go better, then he needs to go away and think about it really hard.
What's the crossover from horseshoe to telephone?
Now, who got clean through there in a 2-man? Almost nobody. They were all hitting the inside on telephone, but the 4-man sled just has more control. There's more weight on it. Well, this is one of the big positives from the first heat. 8th place run from Jan Verber of the Czech Republic, and he's been around long enough not to allow this to freak him out too badly. All they've got to do is do what they did.
Look at that look. The Czechs have improved, especially at the start. Oh, great cohesion. 4:17 there, 5:17, 40, almost a 50 number. You know, I got to tell the story. The telephone curve on the Exeter Horseshoe, you know why they call it telephone?
Yeah,
back in the old days, 75 years ago, if they crashed there, they'd have to call back up and say, we've crashed. Yeah. Don't start yet.
Send somebody down for us. 10th last year, Jan Verber of the Czech Republic, and his best ever 4-man result is, I can't remember.
He had top 5 in Altenburg 1 year. Fifth in Altenburg. Well, good lines. 200s down, though.
Only 200s down.
Yeah, he was fast on the bottom, though, He was really fast on the bottom. He's going to need to be. He's dropped. He's 400s back.
Are we going to see 144?
He's going to need it.
Needs to be really clean here. Werber had a really nice first heat. 1:43.2. I think he's going to stay behind because that's only the same speed as Rico Peter. And in third place at the line, 800s behind.
Now they're enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
They moved up 6 places.
Yeah. And still in the lead. And the gaps are so tiny here, John. It's not like they were 3/10 behind the next couple of sleds. They were only a few hundreds away. Jan Werber, 66 hundredths off the lead. Rico Peter was only 81, so that's 15 hundredths.
100th behind Kassanov, which that's quite a scalp for him to take right there. I mean,
nevertheless, he's third with 7 to go. That's a top 10 finish, best result of the season.
Encouraging for next week's World Championships. There's our leaders.
Look at
Rico, look at the camera. There you go, Rico.
Well, now another big story. Lukas Kolb, the younger and less experienced of the two Austrians who still remain in the top 7, thank you. Bronze medalist in the 4-man junior worlds last week, so he didn't race on this track in the European Cup. So he's also only had 2 4-man trips this week on the track.
Had the 26th best start in the first run, and he comes down in the top 10. Wow.
I'll tell you what, no matter what happens in the second heat, 7th in the first shows that he's got talent.
Yeah, he's got 100th worse. I don't know how he's going to be over a quarter second behind here.
Measuring 200ths off leader Rico Peter.
But that's because of the first team lead.
Yeah, hey, it is what it is. You can only race what you've
Austrian
got.
sleds flew on the bottom part of the track. Now he's down almost 4/10. Now, he might get back some of this, but I don't think he's going to get back much.
Interesting then. So what does this tell us about what the weather conditions were like when he came out in 26th out of our 28 sled field to go 7th fastest compared to the leaders?
And with the 26th best start, 36, he's hanging in now. He's falling back a lot now.
Well, he's pulled up from 13th to 11th.
This is where he's pretty fast. Oh, good speed, 143.8. Ooh, that's a rough transition there.
At least 7 or 8 spots.
13th best time. Now that's something we can understand. With that type of start time.
Okay, but 106.73, he came down 106.28 in the first heat off a similar start. So where's he lost? Nearly half a second.
Half a second.
He lost 45 hundredths. How different was the drive? Not that different. How different is the track then? Has the temperature moved away from the runner choice they made?
How's this little transition into Snake to Sunny? And,
Little
or no,
late.
down to the, excuse me, that's the bottom part of the track. I keep thinking that. But here in the finish, this is late.
To Portago, big skid there, so that takes away some of the
He hasn't hit the clock
advantage.
yet. He had good speed on the bottom, though.
But he lost 4,500 hundredths, and that's the inconsistency of youth. 6 to go here in St Moritz. Oskars Kibermanis is next up. 22-year-old may, if he gets a good second run here, turn his season around in an hour and a half on ice.
One of the better starting teams in the competition. In, down, but that perfect cohesion.
5.
Wow. This is a young 22-year-old driver who I keep saying he's been in not a sophomore slump because this is his 3rd year, but since the first World Cup of the year where in Altenburg where he got 5th, he's been lost. And he's also been lost in the 2-man, and you know, the coaches are a little perplexed with what he's doing, but they still have a lot of hope for him, and with start times like that, I'd have a big hope too.
I'll tell you what, 5:18 in the first heat to 5:05.
Wow. Well, this would be a big positive for him going to the World Championships in Eagles next week, which is all about a start track. And if he can post this type of a start time, he could definitely challenge for a medal.
38 hundredths up on Rico Peter, so he's keeping his first heat lead alive. 1:43, not great speed again from the Eurotech sled, but enough to take the lead by 3/10.
And that's a big positive for this young Latvian. They're going to be happy with this.
1300s quicker than Rico Peter's second run alone. And the Latvian coaches think that it's the progress of Ugis Zalims this year that is the biggest problem in Kibermanis' head.
Well, 4 spectacular young athletes in a program that just has they're 12, 14 deep with great athletes at every position. The athletic, look at the profile, the aerodynamic profile. Look at the way they're holding on in there. Those guys were been fitted into that sled very nicely.
Good run from Keeper Manis.
First time we've seen him smile this year.
First smile we've seen all season long. Oscar's Keeper Manis leads with 5 to go in the European Championships. Big first heat story for Austria's Benny Meyer. After a good day in the two-man yesterday, a great first trip for this 21-year-old soldier from Rum. The last race, the last push, the last drive before the World Championship starts. He must make this a good one.
5:20 in the first run, 5:14, awesome.
And a great load. Did you see the way they got in neatly?
This young kid, what's he, 21?
21.
And wow, what a story this will be for him going into the World Championships next week at his home track, where the Austrians won a gold medal in women's skeleton on Friday to help the cause also.
Raced here last week in Europa Cup, so he has had more training than some of the World Cup sliders who weren't here. And that is all to his benefit. 100th behind.
But he flew on the bottom part of the track, and here he comes.
400's up.
So the first heat was no fluke. This kid has got a fast sled, and he knows how to drive it.
Yeah.
9. He could get 144 kilometer speed down here, which is close to 90 miles an hour.
He was only a 10th out of the medals. This could be a huge
there it
day for
is, best speed. Wow, this is fun.
It wasn't a fluke.
Track
He's
record.
really done a great job. 96, the track record is 94. No, 49.
His father there, Manfred. Wow, what a finish for the Austrians.
Yeah.
But they stopped the sled way too quick in their exuberance. Wow. Well, best Austrian finish in years since Wolfgang Stampfer, who coaches the Swiss, but this is his equipment they're in.
Yep.
Stampfer was a speed merchant, and boy, I think he's taken some of the speed merchant and put it into this young Meyer kid. Look at the profile.
Look at the runners. You can just see the back runners for a fraction, but other than that, it's tracking straight towards the camera. That's just a
We don't see any
balance.
helmets there. We see a little bit of shoulders. That's not too bad. Look at his eyes. Do they blink? When do you blink on the way down?
Well, when do you breathe? Okay, so Austria lead, 4 to go. Francesco Friedrich was our World Cup points leader at the beginning of the season, jogged off in the first heat to a 5:18 and a 5:20 in the first heat. Let's hope there's no further aggravation of his groin injury.
He won the first 2 events of the season in 4-man. He won the first 3 events in 2-man. We thought he was going to be a lock to win the World Championship double title until he had that groin injury, which we thought was in Park City, right?
Yeah.
Where he did it. And since then, he's one of the wounded athletes that's walking around the track.
700s behind Benny Meyer.
Boy, with the way Meyer flew on the bottom part of the track, this would be some scalp for Meyer to grab.
Ooh, I tell you what, Francesco Friedrich first heat, top speed at the bottom was 1:43.3. Meyer's already produced better speed at 1:44.4.
He stopped the bleeding, which relative to the start, he's got it to 7. I don't know if he's going to catch him down here. He's going to need 144.5 speed to catch him.
What a scalp if Benny Meyer stays in front, a double tap, 1300s.
What a celebration.
He's a kilometre an hour too slow. Meyer will lead with 3 to go.
Unbelievable.
Oh my goodness me, Austrian bobsledding there. Second right is Benny Meyer, the smallest of the team.
Shocking.
Friedrich in second, not yet out of the medals.
We thought there was going to be a German sweep. We know that's not going to happen now.
Well, 1, 2, 3 until Oscars Melbardis crept in from 21st in the start draw.
Into Horseshoe. Boy, look at the number 2 or 3 guy there as he got into the curve late. A lot of head movement.
I think he must have been late off Nash and bobbling around as they came through Dixon. That skid there, really, that was the final nail in the coffin, but he didn't have speed all the way down. Well, that injury has got to be a worry. 3 to go. Benny Meyer leads for Austria. Next up, Oscars Melbardis. Back injury for Melbardis. Achilles for Dalmas Driskins. think Arvis Vilkasta and Janis Strenger are still healthy.
Watch out. They know their teammates posted a 5:05 start. They had the best start in the first heat, 5:13. They're looking around at each other saying, let's bust out a track record at the start and go get a medal. This could be, oh, the snow's coming in though. Look at the snow come in now.
Hasn't had a medal this year in four-man Melbardis.
5:13, same start. So much for trying to bust out the best start like his teammates.
He can't bust out anything in case he aggravates his back injury. This is only a World Cup race. Next week, the World Championship start.
Used to be the best starting team in the world, him and his brakeman, Damas Drieskins.
They will be when they're fit. They'll be right back there. They're only third fastest at the moment, and they're both crippled.
And there's a Latvian in third place now, Kibermanis, so...
3/10 back. I don't think he's going to lose that, but yes, the snow has definitely returned. Hey, what, is Holcomb up next or something? What's going on with that?
Yeah, down to 200s.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, my Meyer's got to be looking at this. I could have a chance to win my first ever medal.
He can't read this, and nor can we.
Oh, this is tied to 100.
Needs 144s.
Watch out.
But don't forget, they haven't been getting that from the Eurotech sleds. They've only been in the 143s.
Oh, this is going to be a celebration.
Meyer's going to be in the medals, surely.
Unbelievable.
And he is. Meyer's in the medals. Austria are in the medals. Now you need to get the history books out. When was the last time an Austrian four-man driver was in a European and a World Cup medal position?
Wolfgang Stamper said to us last night he's been in only once ever, and that was in the two-man. We might have to go back more than a decade.
Stamper's best ever four-man result, he said, was 5th in a World Cup race, which may well have been here, I've got to say. Wow.
Unbelievable what we're seeing here today.
The thing is stalling at high speed. It's not cleaving the air the way the Stamford sled does.
Perfect
the way
aerodynamic profile by 4 huge men there.
But you know what? If he had a 10th more at the start, maybe. It's ifs and buts and maybes. Meyer leads 2 to go. Wow. Surely not. Surely not. Nico Walther for Germany, 28 hundredths off the lead in the first heat for Nico, off a 5:19 start. How much more can they find?
A lot of snow coming down here. 5:19, that's not very good. They had the same start in the first run.
Well, there's more snow underneath the spikes. There's more snow underneath the runners now. Walther was complaining, I hear, after the first heat that there was too much snow in the track. He was first off, of course.
Well, anybody the first off at a snow race would say that, so 1400s, he's already lost it.
Wow, that snow is having a major effect. Benny Meyer was 47 hundredths off the snow in the first heat.
He's down to 10 hundredths here, he won't catch him.
He was 19 hundredths behind. Walther makes a mistake, high on the wall, and the tap
there.
He's behind, the sled is skidding too much. Nico Walther is only 4th place on the splits. He's down to 5th place on the splits. He's going to tumble out of the medals. Meyer and Melbardis may be 1st and 2nd with 1 sled to go.
No speed.
He's not going to beat Francesco Friedrich.
Shocking.
Nico Walther tumbles out of the medals, 4th place at the line. Meyer guaranteed at least a silver medal. He's never had a World Cup medal before. And the snow is wreaking havoc on Germany's plans for domination of this podium.
I can't believe the story, what I'm going to see for the stories when we arrive at Innsbruck tomorrow. The papers.
Half a second slower than his first heat. And he thought the snow was bad in heat 1.
Profile, aerodynamic profile's good, but the exit here is... You know,
look at that team. How do they fit Hubenbecker in there? He's 6'7". He looks like he's 5'7". Oh, Benny Meyer will not breathe for 1 minute and 9 seconds now.
Well, if he goes a half second slower here, our leader Max Arndt, Meyer's going to win the medal.
Max Arndt, the first heat leader, 1 race win this season, never out of the top 3.
Snow is coming.
World champion on this track in 2013.
In and down through the first Albatross. Very conservative 5:15 compared to their first run of 5:14.
Leads by 46 hundredths. But look at the tracks he's leaving in the snow.
And the snow on a natural track makes a big difference. You can see him. Look at the drive lines in those straightaways.
4600s at the first split, 3700s. If he loses a tenth at each clock, he'll be behind at the bottom.
If he smacks the wall here, he can't. This is the world champion on this track in 2013.
3200s, he's just about holding his own here.
Still, we've seen, this is expected.
Oh, late. And this is what happened to Walther. Gap's down to 3/10. He can't lose it from here without a really major mistake. And he's now clean out of Gunter Sachs. 1:43 seconds to win. The European champion, our race winner, will be Max Arndt by single digits, 1800s. Benny Meyer in the silver medal position, the greatest result of his young career. And Oskars Melbardis takes the European bronze medal ahead of Friedrich, Walther, and Kiebermanis. But there's your winner.
Meyer posted the best time of the final run.
By some margin.
Wow. Well, this is expected. Okay, he won the World Championships here. He's never been off the podium at all this season. Now he's won his second consecutive race. He's the World Cup leader. He's going to win the World Cup title. If he gets a start time in Innsbruck, he'll be the world champion.
2900 slower than Meyer. He led by 37, so he wins by 1800ths of a second. But Max Arndt, yeah, the World Cup Crystal Globe is heading his way. The best four-man driver of the season. He now has the same number of wins as teammates Nico Walther and Francesco Friedrich, but he has never left the top three all year, and that's why he is where he is.
Well, I think the story of the day has to be this young Benny Meyer. Arndt, okay, this is a given. We expect this. Just such consistency at the start.
World champion here 2013, European champion here 2016.
Never been off the podium all season long. He's the best four-man driver in the field. If you give him a start like he had the first run, he's pretty hard to catch. In Innsbruck Eagles, 2 weeks from now, he's going to be about a start time. He's going to have a top three start to have this chance to win a world championship again.
I'll tell you, the other big story is the recovery of Rico Peter from 14th in the first heat up to 7th. Jan Verber, 9th, another great top 10 finish for him. And Oskars Melbardis, despite injury, on the podium in only his 4th World Cup race of the season. But Benny Meyer, fantastic result for him. Kosberg of France slipped a bit. Lucas Kolb, the second Austrian, slipped a bit as well, but another good result. The first heat, Lucas Kolb showed he's got plenty of potential. All he needs now is a bit of consistency. Well, Max Arndt now with a, what's that, 120-point lead. The gap between first and maybe 6th position. Francesco Friedrich second, Rico Peter in 3rd, close on Friedrich's heels and not far ahead of Nico Walther. And Benny Meyer, 17th in points. He started the day only in 18th position. What a great result for him. Well, it snowed, then it didn't, then it did. And this, I think, is the beginning of the storm that may well sock in St Moritz later on during the afternoon. The weather forecasters said lunchtime. It's now 5 to 1. That's lunchtime in my book. So I think they weren't that far wrong. Last 3 sleds, they ran into snow, John, that Benny Meyer didn't, but you can't argue with Benny Meyer. He put in 2 really great drives.
He had the best speed in the bottom part of the track in both runs, so he's got a piece of equipment, and he obviously knows how to point it. But he had a big advantage here. He was here the week before at the Europa Cup, and I think that was the trump card.
But he wasn't the only one.
No.
He was not the only one, but he used every trick in the book, every advantage he had, he certainly used them.
Well, we saw it a little bit yesterday with his 2-man start. 4-man start, better than average, and got a fast piece of equipment.
Marcus Sammer, he is the key ingredient in the 2-man. A real big pushing asset for Benny Meyer. And wow, with starts like that and home knowledge in Eagles,
ooh,
this might be the Swiss development program now here starting.
First Gestutz of the day.
Yeah. What do they call it on the Cresta run? You fall on the Cresta run. You don't crash, you fall. You're a faller. Luckily, you and I were both clever enough to, or lucky enough to avoid that. Flags of many nations around the start area here in St Moritz as the snow blows in. Wasn't a great day for Russia, was it? Best of their results. Katyanov in 8th place. Zakharov in 12th and Alexei Stolnev 16th, just behind Stephen Holcomb of the USA, one of only one of the two US sleds to make it into the second heat at all. Two of the three Canadians didn't get in. Justin Cripps finished in 11th, but Kaylee Humphries and Chris Spring didn't make the cut at all. Snowy St Moritz, our European champion, is Max Arndt. He wins the race here by a slender 1800ths over Benny Meyer, who was over nearly half a second behind in the first heat. Oskars Melbardis takes the bronze as Francesco Friedrich and Nico Walther run into a snowdrift and drop out of the medals. Jan Verber, great run in 9th. Loic Kosteg of France in 13th place. And a good run too from the young Austrian Lukas Kolb to take 17th place. Didn't quite manage to back up his good result. 17 the race with the two North American sleds taken out. He's in 15th place in the European Championship results. There's the Dracula Club, the famous club sent up by Gunter Sachs, after whom the final of our Fast Four Corners is named. But John Morgan, the world champion on this track 3 years ago, the European champion on this track today, and Max Arndt leading the field in four-man everywhere he goes.
We keep forgetting he won the World Championships last year, too, by only 200ths of a second over Nico Walther, but Walther faltered with the 9th best time of the run in the second heat. His teammate Max Arndt had a big lead the first run, and proved again he's the most consistent four-man driver that's out here.
But again, it was only the 6th fastest run in the second heat, so he had that big first-round advantage, and boy, he needed it. 4th off out of the start shed, he had some of the worst conditions in Heat 1. He certainly had some of the worst conditions in Heat 2.
The story, though, has to be Benny Meyer finishing.
No
I'm trying to think, you have to go back to Herbert Schasser. I mean, I can't believe that Wolfgang Stauffer never won a World or European Cup or World Cup. Yeah, he's won a World Cup medal in 3rd, but
well, not in four-man. Not in four-man. Well, there is your podium. Oskars Melbardis and his crew, Benny Meyer and his crew, and Max Arndt and the team. So Melbardis and the crew on the right, Meyer on the left-hand side, and there is the Jeroboam being handed to our race winner, Max Arndt, by the Mum Champagne representatives. So champagne all round.
What a day for the Austrians.
Now, which of the lineup wasn't there? Where was Martin Putzer? Is he not well? Oh, that's not what Max Arndt wants. Well, that brings the action to a conclusion here in St Moritz. Join us for the next 2 weeks as we go World Championship racing in Austria. For John Morgan, the IBSF TV crew, I'm Martin Haven saying thank you for joining us. Join us next week in Innsbruck. Till then, goodbye from St Moritz.